bookish friends, my name is Jackie and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing another book haul, and these are books that I've either purchased myself or received from publishers. Alright, first I'm going to start with mystery and thriller books. I don't have nearly as many of those this time as I did in my last haul. I only have 3 or 4 of them, so this should be pretty quick. The first book I want to share is Undead and Unwed by Sam Shida. I was very kindly sent this from Quirk Books, and it says that it's following Tiffany, who is 300 years old and she's a hot mess. She's a vampire, but she's still single and works a dead-end job at a bank, and she spends her night watching Hallmark movies. She ends up inheriting a fixer-upper home in Vermont, and thanks to a case of mistaken identity, she takes a chance to seize her life back and get things back on track. But she discovers that she has a newly undead neighbor, and she's determined to live out her holiday rom-com dreams in this town. Soon, however, the mystery of her stolen identity, the small town drama, and the arrival of her insufferable vampire ex-boyfriend Vlad means getting her happily ever after won't be very easy. She has to embark on a journey of self-acceptance with the help of a few therapy sessions for the first time in her immortal life. So it sounds like it's a little bit of a mystery, but it's got some like rom-com elements to it as well. I love genre bending books like this. I love books that aren't so serious in terms of mysteries and thrillers, because I think that levity and humor can really make the book more palatable to me and a little bit easier for me to read. Alright, the next book that I wanted to share is Doll Parts by Penny Zhang. This is what sounds like a dark academia story, and it says that it's following 2 best friends, Nikki and Sadie. They are going to college to have a fresh start and kind of leave their youth behind. But along the way, they meet some very sadness-obsessed girls, intrusive professors, and there's a dark story that's plaguing their small all-women's school. So basically there's this campus legend going around that's surrounding the deaths of multiple students who adored Sylvia Plath, and all of these have been written off as suicides. Nikki is an aspiring writer, and she finds herself drawn to the tragic tales, so much that the dead girls begin to haunt her dark imagination. She digs deeper and discovers there's so much more to the story, and her suspicion leads to a tragedy of its own, one that will tear her and Sadie apart. Then 20 years pass, and now Sadie and Nikki have not seen each other in all this time. Nikki ends up dead, and when Sadie ends up pregnant with her grieving husband not long after the funeral, she finds herself stepping into her ex-best friend's seemingly perfect life. But the longer she lives in Nikki's eerily preserved home, the more she sees her, and soon she's convinced that Nikki is sending her hints from beyond the grave. It seems like Nikki never stopped looking for answers about what happened to the girls of the Sylvia Club, and she in fact may have been the latest victim. Like I mentioned before, this sounds like it's got some dark academia vibes to it. It sounds really interesting. I think it would be a perfect read for the fall or winter time, so I'm definitely gonna try to make this a priority to read this fall if possible. It's got those eerie vibes, some grim things going on in here, just very much darker themes, which I think could be interesting to read about. It's following like this sorority or this club on the campus, and I think it's really interesting to delve into kind of the darker aspects of that. I love college set stories like this, so I am excited to dive into this one. Alright, the next thriller I have to share is Best Offer Wins by Maria Cashino. This is following the insane competitive housing market, a desperate buyer on the edge, and it's a darkly hilarious debut novel. How far would you go to get the house of your dreams? It says 18 months and 11 bidding wars into house hunting in the overheated DC area. 37-year-old publicist Margot Miyake gets a tip about the perfect house in the perfect neighborhood. This is slated to come up for sale in a month. She's desperate to escape her cramped apartment, which she shares with her husband, and in turn get married, plan to have a baby, and get their whole life back on track. She becomes obsessed with buying the house before it's publicly listed, and then the masses descend with unbeatable cash offers unhand. She ends up doing a little bit of stalking, a little bit of trespassing, and she infiltrates the homeowners' lives, and then her tactics grow increasingly unhinged, but she thinks she's won them over until she hits a snag in her plan. She's undeterred and will prove again and again that there's no boundary she won't cross to seize the dream life she's been chasing. The most unsettling part is that you'll root for her even as you gasp in disbelief. I think this is really interesting. It's going to explore themes of class, ambition, and the modern housing crisis, and this is kind of a unique take for a thriller. I don't think I've ever read a book where like the main character goes unhinged because of something that's happening with like a housing market, although this does seem like the perfect premise or the perfect kind of plot point to include in this type of book. I am super excited to dive into this. I am looking for some more thrillers that I will really enjoy, especially after some recent disappointments. Alright, the last thriller I have is The Red Letter by Daniel G. Miller. This is following Hazel, who has everything she wants. Business is booming at her boutique private investigation firm. She's dating the man of her dreams, and her skeptical mother actually seems to be impressed. arrest. But then the NYPD find a beloved neighborhood priest dead along with a mysterious red letter. She investigates the murder as a favor to an old friend and discovers the priest wasn't the only recent murder victim to receive a red letter. One victim has ties to a psychopath from a past life that Hazel thought she had buried. But one by one, the red letters continue to appear, and with every letter, another killing, each more mysterious than the last. She closes in on the killer, and the killer closes in on her, and Hazel begins to question everything she thought she knew about herself and the people around her. Worse, she discovers that the only way to find out the truth is to open one more red letter. This sounds interesting. It sounds like a domestic thriller, so I'm excited to dive into this one. Also, it came with this really cute like red letter, which I thought was really fun. Inside it just has like a letter from the author, I believe, or just some information about the book, the writing process, all of that, which I appreciate. But I think this is really cool that they included this in here. And just look at that, the little like stamp on it is really pretty. I love this added detail. I can't wait to dive into the red letter soon. Hopefully it'll be one that I end up picking in the fall season, as I'm really in the mood for some grittier reads. So this is one that I am excited to try out. All right, so next we're gonna move on to historical fiction books that I've recently received. So let's dive into those. First, I was sent The Night Sparrow by Shelley Sanders. I was very kindly sent this from Harper Perennial, so thank you so much to them for sending me an advanced reader copy of this one. I can't wait to dive into it. It says that it takes place during World War II. It's about a young Jewish girl who joins an elite Russian sniper unit and embarks on a mission targeting the highest prize, Adolf Hitler. With the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union, Elena Bruskina's world collapses. The ambitious university student and her Jewish family are quickly forced into the Minsk ghetto, where thousands are immediately murdered, including her father and brother. As tragedy continues to envelop her family, Elena is alone with her grief and she ends up escaping the ghetto. She's determined to avenge her family's death, and she heads to Moscow, where she enrolls in the Red Army's newly created Central Women's Sniper Training School. After rigorous training, she becomes a member of an all-female platoon, a community of young brave women willing to give their lives to defend their country. Elena is chosen for a secret mission, a daring and highly dangerous plan to capture the face of evil itself, Hitler. This is inspired by real-life female snipers and interpreters in the Red Army during World War II. It's a portrait of friendship, resilience, courage, and sacrifice under extraordinary circumstances. I'm excited to dive into this one. I have recently been reading a lot more World War II historical fictions again, and this seems like the perfect one to pick up. Maybe this is one that I will even be able to get to this fall. I would really like to, but I am always a little bit nervous when I dive into these because I do have very high expectations for my World War II historicals. Next up, I have War Games by Alan Gratz. This also takes place in 1936 in Berlin, so this is during World War II as well. And it says that nothing is what it seems. Evie Harris can't believe her luck. She's competing in the Olympics alongside fellow American athletes like Jesse Owens, but there's something creepy about Germany's new leader, Adolf Hitler, who watches over the games with his Nazi henchmen. But Evie is just here to win a gold medal in gymnastics until she discovers a horrible secret. Behind the Olympic fanfare, the Nazis have Berlin in an iron grip of terror and violence. A war is brewing. Evie becomes embroiled in a mysterious plot to help steal Nazi gold, and she must navigate the city's darkest corners and hidden passageways, never knowing who she can trust. With lives on the line and her family's future at stake, she has to choose between following her Olympic dreams and standing up to evil before it's too late. Sounds very interesting. It's going to get my heart racing, I think. This is really intense. I completely forgot that there were actually Olympic Games that were held in 1936 in Berlin. This is not something that's talked about a lot in history books, and I think that's important to remember, especially as Hitler and the Nazis were kind of at the face of this, and they tried to put on this front to disguise what was really happening within the country to the rest of the world. So I'm excited to dive into this. I have a couple other of Alan Gratz's books as well, and I know he writes these like really gritty historical fictions, so I can't wait to dive into them. Speaking of Alan Gratz, I have another of his books, and this is Refugee. It's a graphic novel, and it takes place in 3 different timelines, but 2 of the timelines are in the past, so that's why I classified it as historical fiction. But we follow Josef, who is a Jewish boy who's fleeing Nazi Germany in 1939, Isabel, who is a Cuban girl escaping Havana in 1994, and Mahmoud, who is a Syrian boy trying to leave Aleppo in 2015. They all go on harrowing journeys and face unimaginable dangers, and they're separated by continents and decades, but there is a shocking twist that connects their stories at the end. I love graphic novels, and I'm really curious to see how these 3 stories are going to intertwine in this one. Like I said, want to try out Alan Gratz's writing, and I can't wait to dive into this one. I might try to read this one before the other book that I have that I recently hauled of his, because this will definitely be a much faster read as it is a graphic novel. I was very kindly sent both of these books from Scholastic Press, so thank you so much to Scholastic for sending me free advanced reader copies of these. Next up, I have Daughter of Genoa by Kat Devereaux. I was very kindly sent an early copy of this from Harper Perennial, so thank you so much to the publisher for sending me this. It takes place during World War II as well, and this is is set in war-torn 1940s, and it's inspired by true events about a young woman who risks everything to help Jewish Italians flee the fascists while falling in love with the brave aviator behind a daring secret rescue operation. Anna's family fled to America years ago, escaping Mussolini's black shirts when they began rounding up Italian Jews, but Anna stayed behind. She's alone and terrified of discovery, and she ends up meeting Father Vittorio, a Jesuit priest who takes her to shopkeepers Bernardo and Silvia, an older couple who offer to shelter her without question. But when Anna discovers that this kind, quiet couple is part of a network of ordinary people daring to help Father Vittorio smuggle Jewish citizens stripped of their rights out of Italy, she's determined to help. She offers skills that are essential to the cause. She is good at ledgers and forgery. She has talents that she acquired at a high-powered job she held before the racial laws were passed, and she has a past that she's trying to conceal. She works in secrecy, not knowing the others' real names or sharing her own, and she begins producing fake identity cards and soon meets another member of the operation, a man known as Mr. X, whom she recognizes instantly as the wealthy aviator Massimo Teglio. Suddenly, without warning, despite the threat of imprisonment and torture and death, she finds herself taking the most dangerous risk of all. She's falling in love, and she's not the only one. This is based on a true story on the Delegation for Assistance of Jewish Immigrants, an organization of volunteers that worked to save innocent lives from the concentration camps. I am excited about this. I am curious about the romance storyline and how that's gonna play out in here too. I know there was a romance storyline in The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna, which really broke my heart, so I am not prepared for this yet. But I think it'll be interesting. I've never read a World War II historical fiction set in Italy, I don't think, so this would be a first for me for sure. Finally, for historical fictions, it's yet another World War II one. This is We Were the Lucky Ones by Georgia Hunter. I actually picked this up at a little free library near me, and I exchanged some other books for this one. This takes place in the spring of 1939, and it follows 3 generations of the Kirk family as they're doing their best to live normal lives even as the shadow of war grows closer. There's talk around the family table of new babies and budding romance, and not of the increasing hardships threatening Jews in their hometown of Poland. But soon horrors begin overtaking Europe and become inescapable, and the Kirks are flung to the far corners of the world, each desperately trying to navigate their own way to safety. It's a breathtaking and sweeping novel that propels readers from the jazz clubs of Paris to the farthest reaches of the Siberian Gulag. It's an extraordinary story of love and hope in the face of the darkest moments of the 20th century. I have heard nothing but great things about this book. I saw it in the little free library and I knew I needed to bring it home with me. I'm so excited to dive into this one. A lot of people really enjoyed this one, so I'm hoping that I will too. I believe the publisher for this is Penguin Random House, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll check into that before I upload this. But I'm excited to dive into it. I can't wait to read this one. As I said, so many people have really enjoyed it, so I'm hoping I will too. Alright, next up, I wanted to share some historical romances that I've recently acquired, so let's dive into those. Starting with the few that I purchased for myself, first I have Bridgerton, this bound collection of the first 2 books. So this is Daphne and Anthony's stories. This is The Duke and I and The Viscount Who Loved Me. I absolutely adore the Bridgerton series. I have read all 8 books, and I've actually reread some of the books multiple times. I've definitely reread The Viscount Who Loved Me at least 2 or 3 times, so I can't wait to reread it from this bound edition. And I'm just so excited to have this one. It's got like the green and the pink metallic on it, and this edition is stunning. I want to collect all of them over time, so I'll slowly be acquiring the other 3 bound editions that were released of this series, and over time I hope to complete my collection. The other historical romance that I bought for myself is another favorite of mine, and this is Secrets of a Summer Night by Lisa Kleypas. I got this off of Thrift Books, and I wanted to get it because I have the other 3 books in the series, but I was still missing this one. So now I have a complete collection of the wallflowers, and I'm excited to have that. And I think this cover is so stunning. You can kind of see what the step back would look like right there, but this edition does not have the step back, unfortunately. But now I at least have the full collection together, so I can reread these at my leisure. I love this series so much, and I am so eager to do a reread of Lisa Kleypas' book soon. Alright, so moving on to my little free library finds. First, I have The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton. I have been wanting to pick this book up for so long, and I'm so glad that I found it in my little free library near me. That way I wasn't tempted to spend money on this, and I just traded in one of my books for this one. And I'm so excited to read this. I can't wait. It says, a prim and proper lady thief must save her aunt from a crazed pirate and her dangerously handsome henchman in this fantastical historical romance. It's following Cecilia Basingthwaite, who is the ideal Victorian lady, but she's also a thief. Like other members of the Wisteria Society crime sorority, she flies around England drinking tea, blackmailing friends, and acquiring treasures by interesting means. She has a dark and traumatic past, an overbearing aunt, but all things considered, it's a pleasant existence until the men show up. Ned Lightbourne is a sometime assassin who is smitten with Cecilia from the moment they meet. Unfortunately, this happens to be when he has direct orders to kill her. His employer possesses a Gothic abbey bristling with cannons and an unbridled hate for the world, and he intends to rid England of all its presumptuous women, starting with this mysterious society. Ned has plans of his own, but both men have made a grave mistake. Never underestimate a woman. When Morvath, his boss, imperils the Wisteria Society, she's forced to team up with her handsome would-be assassin to save the women who raised her, hopefully proving once and for all that she's as much of a scoundrel as the rest of them. I am so excited for this. I love kind of the fact that this has some crime aspects to it as well, and I believe that recently a sequel to this came out, so if I end up enjoying this one, I will be picking up the sequel either from my library, or if I find it in a little free library, I will definitely pick it up to keep it. But I'm excited to dive into this. I have been seeing this book everywhere, and I think it's one that I will really love. Next, I have a Harlequin mass market historical, and this one I also found at that little free library, and it's The Return of His Caribbean Heiress by Lydia San Andres. I was really interested in this. I want to read some more diverse historical romances because I think most of the ones I end up reading are written by white authors or feature white characters, so I'm looking to branch out a little bit. And this says that there's an unforgettable first kiss and an unexpected second chance. It's been 5 years since the night Leandro Diaz kissed heiress Lucia Troncoso before she left for Europe. He'd known they were from different worlds and would have to part, yet losing her hurt still. And now that she's returned, Leo isn't the man that he once was. He's been hardened by life, and he holds Lucia at a distance and refuses to give in to the reignited attraction until danger hits and they're forced closer together than ever before. I'm excited for this. I think this is going to be great for September maybe. I know that it is romance and I'm not in as much of a romance mood, but this sounds really amazing, and it does feature some like Latin characters, so since September is Hispanic Heritage Month, this would be like a perfect book to pick up for that. And since I want to read more diverse historical romances, this would also be perfect for that as well. And finally, for historical romances, I have 3 vintage ones, which I also found at this little free library. This little free library is located outside of a Barnes & Noble, and because of that, there are often really good books in it. So I'm very, very pleased with it, and I'm so glad to have it near me. I have found a lot of wins and a lot of books that I really wanted in it, so I'm very thankful. All 3 of these books are by Heather Graham, and the first one that I want to share is Every Time I Love You. This is the cover here, and you can kind of see that it's got this metallic gold here. I just love collecting historical romances, the vintage ones in particular. And it says, the first moment he saw her, he knew he would move heaven and earth to have her. The dark, handsome rebel had ruthlessly seduced exquisite Katrina Seymour. She fled her powerful Tory family to be at his side, but as revolution raged and a nation struggled to be born, heartbreaking betrayal and treachery would set Percy Ainsworth against the young Katrina. What began as a scandalous affair would end in violence and a passion that cried out for truth and fulfillment through centuries of time. Gail Norman was too savvy to believe in love at first sight, yet Brent Macaulay, the brilliant artist, was irresistible. Overnight, they were passionately involved, and within a month, they were married. It was all wonderful, but almost too good to be true. When their bright love suddenly turned dark and dangerous, could they believe in the reality of a long-forgotten past? I am interested in this. This takes place over 200 years ago. I think it's really interesting. It seems like there's like 2 love stories, one that takes place like 200 years before the other, maybe. That's what it seems like based off of the cover description here, and I am so excited to have this. Even if I don't get to it for a while, I am really interested in collecting these. I just love the cover. They're absolutely stunning, and these are a real work of art, so I'm happy to have it for my collection. Next up, I have Sweet Savage Eden, also by Heather Graham. I just love the covers on this again, like I said, and just look at that. This is beautiful. It's like wraparound too. You can see the flowers there that wrap around, and it says, Defiant Bride, from the first time Jasmine's eyes met those of Lord Jamie Cameron in a smoky British inn, theirs was the wrong kind of attraction. It wasn't gentle, slow, and easy, but it was hot, hard, and all-consuming. She's the illegitimate daughter of an actress and a duke, and she had dreams that no man could wrench from her in a moment of desire. She'd resist this bold nobleman with all the strength of her soul, but her golden hair, fiery temper, and indomitable spirit obsessed Lord Cameron, and he wanted her with him when he sailed for the new wilderness called Virginia. So he had a bargain for the Spitfire Jazzy, one that only a very special woman would dare to make. I am really excited in this. It looks like it's a second book in the series, maybe? I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to look into that. And it seems like her books are kind of set in the Americas, which is really interesting to note. I haven't read a lot of American historical romances. A majority of the ones that I read end up being in England, so I definitely want to branch out and try this out. Finally, I have Love Not a Rebel, also by Heather Graham. This one has this like metallic red on it, which is a little bit faded over time, but it's beautiful again. Just, I love the texture on this, the metallicness of it. And the cover here says, he vowed to conquer her in every way, but she swore to. And then it says, love not a rebel on the side. Again, it's got like this wraparound like floral kind of going on here, which is stunning. And it says, a selection of the Doubleday Book Club. She is a reluctant spy. They called her Her Highness, ravishing Lady Amanda Sterling, forced to spy on Lord Eric Cameron by the Lord Governor of Virginia and her evil, ambitious father. She detested Eric Cameron on sight, and he was a traitor to king and country, yet she'd been sent to steal his heart, his soul, and his secret plans for revolution. Now she was his wife, swept into marriage with the man who would sear her with the hellfire of his desire and make her his prisoner of love. Passionate patriot. Lord Eric Cameron turned his back on his family's estates in England to embrace the Patriots' cause. He did it quietly before the fateful shots at Lexington and Concord rang out, and his true allegiance became clear by cannon and by sword. But Eric also fought another war with the glorious Amanda Sterling, the beauty he had married, knowing he could never trust her but never let her go. Amanda, the woman he had vowed to conquer, the spy he would never surrender, even at the risk of his life. Love, not a rebel. Again, it's another North American historical romance, which is not one that I really dive into. And I think it's interesting that they're on opposite sides. She's pro the British keeping the colonies in America, and he is fighting for independence. So that's definitely going to cause a lot of friction in the relationship. And I'm so curious to see how everything will be resolved in this one. I am excited to have this in my collection, and I'm so glad that I was able to find all three of these, since I have a hard time finding like vintage historicals without spending a lot of money on them. So very glad to have these for my collection, and I am hoping to try them out at some point. All right, so next we're gonna move on to nonfiction and biography books. I have quite a few of these this time. First, I have A City on Mars by Kelly and Zach Weinersmith. This is a nonfiction. This is about asking the question if we can settle in space. Should we settle in space, and how we really thought this through? So it says, Earth is not well, and the promise of starting life anew somewhere far, far away with no climate change or no war and no doom scrolling is something that seems within our grasp, or is it? And these two authors set out to write the essential guide to a glorious future of space settlements, but after years of research, they aren't sure it's a good idea. Space technologies and space businesses are progressing fast, but we lack the knowledge we needed to have space kids, build space farms, and create space nations in a way that don't spark conflict back home. So it's really kind of diving into some of the thoughts on us having cities on Mars and the implications that this could have for people on Mars and also back on Earth, which I think is interesting. There isn't a lot of discussion on the possible negative implications of this, which I think it's important to be discussing this, because as much as we like to discuss the pros and like this is our escape plan or escape hatch, it's important to note that this might not be a good solution for us. So I think that this will be interesting to dive into and explore. It's definitely focused on a topic that I'm interested in learning more about for sure. This book was very kindly sent to me by the publisher Penguin Random House. So thank you so much for sending me an early copy of this book. Next, I have Dealing with Feeling, Use Your Emotions to Create the Life You Want by Mark Brackett. This was very kindly sent to me from Celadon Books. So thank you so much to Celadon for sending me an early copy of this. But this is basically talking about how success in our everyday life, in every aspect, in career, friendship, love, and family, is determined by how we deal with our feelings. And in our most challenging moments, how do we respond? Do we fly off the handle? Are we paralyzed by indecision? Or do we engage in behaviors that undermine our best intentions? So it's about emotional regulation and how this isn't a fixed trait, but it's a set of skills and techniques that can be learned, practiced, and refined over a lifetime. And then the author navigates his own challenges of dealing with emotions and explains the latest science of emotional regulation and provides a set of practical and evidence-based strategies to help us practice this in our day-to-day life. This, I think, will be a very important read. I think that this is something everyone can always work towards. Emotional regulation is not something that's very easy to do, but it is a skill that can be mastered. And especially for myself, this is helpful, but also for future clients. I think this will be a very informative read, so I can't wait to dive into this one. Next up, I have How Progress Ends, Technology, Innovation, and the Fate of Nations by Carl Benedict Frey. This is the author of The Technology Trap. And this is about how conventional belief that economic and technological progress is inevitable, how it kind of challenges that. And for most of human history, stagnation was actually the norm. So today's progress and prosperity in the world's largest and most advanced economies have fallen short of expectations. And then it talks about why we cannot depend on AI-fueled great leaps forward. And he offers a fascinating journey across the globe spanning the 1,000 years to explain why some societies flourish and others fail in the wake of rapid technological change. So it examines key historical moments from the rise of the steam engine to the dawn of AI. So we're really going back in history and covering all of the major events throughout time. And it shows why technological shifts have happened and how they have sometimes destabilized entire civilizations. And he explores why some leading technological powers of the past, like Song China and Dutch Republic, have lost their innovative edge, and why some modern nations like Japan have had periods of rapid growth. And also why things like planned economies like like the Soviet Union collapse after brief periods of progress. So there's a lot of recurring tension in history, and it fosters the exploration of technology, bureaucracy, and how we can scale all of these. And when institutions fail to adapt for technological change, stagnation inevitably follows. So carefully balancing decentralizing this and bureaucracy can help nations to innovate and grow over the long term. So I think that this will be very interesting. I don't know if I will fully understand everything on a first read, so I might have to reread passages as I go through this because it might fly over my head a little bit, but I'm definitely intrigued to dive into this one. It's one that I am interested in trying out, and I'm curious to see what this author has to say about progress and commentary and how certain societies have failed while others have flourished, and I want to see what his perspective is on that. So I'm really curious to dive into this one. I probably won't get to this for a minute, but it is one that has piqued my interest. Next up, we have Are You Mad at Me by Meg Josephson, LCSW. So that's licensed clinical social worker, and it's how to stop focusing on what others think and start living for you. So this is something that I definitely needed reminders for, and I'm excited to dive into this one. I was very kindly sent a copy of this by Gallery Books, and I can't wait to dive into this. It might be a good resource to recommend to my clients in the future. So again, definitely one that I want to sit and analyze a little bit more than some of the fiction books that I read. But it is basically kind of talking about people pleasing and how it's not really a personality trait, but it's a survival mechanism and an instinct learned in childhood to be appealing so that we're not a perceived threat in order to feel safe. But many people are stuck this way in their whole lives. And Meg Josephson is a therapist who tells her own moving story, and through these stories and exercises shows readers how to identify the roles we might play, from peacekeeper to performer to caretaker, stop fearing our thoughts and emotions even if they're unpleasant, rethinking conflict and boundaries as an opening for deeper connection, practicing leaning back in relationships, recognizing when people pleasing is necessary and when it's not, and how to stop falling into old patterns, and then shifting away from familiar chaos and anxiety and resentment in order to move closer to self-actualization and finding things that bring us joy. Again, I think this will be a very informative read. Definitely is going to be one that I'm going to need to take my time with, but it's not such a beast of a book as the previous one was, so I am looking forward to diving into this. I think it'll be a very enriching experience, and this paired along with the emotional regulation book will be important to read. I think they're good like companion books in that sense. Next up, I have The Wounded Generation, Coming Home After World War II by David Nassau. This is another nonfiction, and this is talking about kind of the effects that World War II had on the people that fought, so both the men and the women on the home front, and also in the battles, and how that affected the whole society for years to come afterwards, and how it basically reshaped the entire world. And it kind of dives into veterans, the PTSD that they faced after this, and how women had begun working outside of the home and were pressured to revert to their pre-war status as housewives dependent on their husbands. So it causes a lot of societal shifting as well. Alcoholism increases, divorce rates increase a lot, racial tensions really heightened after this, and veterans are really struggling to adjust and adapt back to civilian life. So I think it'll be really interesting to dive into this. I think PTSD is not a topic that is often discussed, and when you talk about World War II or World War II historical fictions, they're often focused on the battles or the immediate effects of the war, but it doesn't go into a lot of the aftermath. So I will be excited to dive into this one. I really enjoy history, and this is a period of history that always intrigues me and always piques my attention, so I'm excited to dive into this. Thank you so much to Penguin Press for sending me a free advanced reader copy of this. I can't wait to read it. Next, I have On Anti-Semitism, A Word in History by Mark Mazauer. This is kind of talking about anti-Semitism, the definition of it, and what we really mean when we're using this term, and how most of this history it's been perceived as being a menace by ethno-nativists and people who are very Christian and are suspicious of tiny Jewish population, and it's been also infused with a lot of pseudoscience. So when the 20th century began, a majority of the world's Jewish people lived in Europe, and for them there was no confusion about where the threat of anti-Semitic politics lay. This was with the Nazis in Germany and the Holocaust. And this book kind of talks about how the term has evolved over time from the late 19th century to the present day, and he's kind of arguing about how the anti-Semitic landscape has changed over time, since now most of the world's Jewish population live in Israel and the United States, which is very different from how things were prior to World War II. And Jewish people were considered a minority that was apart from others and drawn by opposition to fascism before, but now they're considered to be whites, so they're kind of lumped in with other white people, and like they're considered to be like anti-colonialists. It's very interesting. There's going to be a lot of arguments in this. He is going to talk about how anti-Semitism kind of persists into the current day and the effects that this is having, how it presents differently now than it did in the 19th and 20th centuries. And I think it'll be a very informative book. I am curious to read into this, and it's a topic that unfortunately is still very relevant moment, and I'm always trying to educate myself and be as culturally responsive and sensitive as possible. So this is definitely one that I'm looking forward to reading to expand my mind a little bit. Next, I have the Dead and Alive essays by Zadie Smith. This was also very kindly sent to me by Penguin Press. And this is kind of focused on her literary voice and her collection of essays. So in the past few decades, few writers have accomplished the craft and art of writing essays in the way that Zadie Smith has. Her writing deals with personal reckoning, but also communal reflection, and it studies the fault lines that divide us and consistently finds grounds for solidarity and compassion. So this dives into a lot of different topics and subjects that have captured her attention in recent years, and it's organized in 5 theme sections. So one is eyeballing, next is considering, reconsidering, mourning, and confessing. She goes into intimate dialogues, and it has a lot of different sources of inspiration in this. So she invites us along to the movies, to her desk, to a lot of different locations, and to mourn the passing of writers like Toni Morrison, Joan Didion, Philip Roth, and shows us that her ability to think critically and humanely is unprecedented in our troubled times. I'm excited. I've heard really great things about Zadie Smith's essays in the past, and I can't wait to read this. I probably will be reading this little by little over time, so I won't read this like I would read a novel all at once, but rather I'd read just a section here, a section there, and then go on like that. Finally, I wanted to dive into some biographies. So these aren't really nonfictions in the same way, but they are telling the story of this individual. So first, we have Mike Tyson biography. So it's called Baddest Man, The Making of Mike Tyson by Mark Kriegel. So this is kind of focused on his rise, and it covers Mike Tyson and his inner circle dating back to the 1980s. It's an epic about fame, race, greed, criminality, trauma, and the creation of the most feared boxer in history. It starts on an evening to find that greed is good in the 1980s when a host of celebrities and high rollers were hosted in a carnival town on Jersey Shore in the glow created by a 21-year-old heavyweight champion. Mike Tyson had knocked out Michael Spinks that night, and in a 91 frenzied seconds earned more than the annual payrolls of the LA Lakers and the Boston Celtics players combined. It had been 8 years since Tyson, who grew up in a dystopian Brooklyn neighborhood, was delivered to boxing wizard Cus D'Amato, who was living as a self-imposed exile in upstate New York, and together they created an irresistible story of mutual redemption, darlings to novelists, screenwriters, and newspapermen, and perfect for the start of the industry on cable television. So this was before Tony Soprano, HBO's leading man, and it was the greatest sales job in sports history and the most lucrative, but there are a lot of concealed truths and darker stories in this. It's more nuanced than the script would allow, and it kind of goes over the intervening decades of Tyson, how he was villainized, lionized, and fetishized, but never fully seen as a human being. So he was either held up as this model, revered, or he was dragged down and seen as less than a person. So I think it's interesting that this is going to try to humanize him. So I am interested in trying this out. I know a little bit about Mike Tyson, but not too much of his story. So I'd like to know more about his background since he's such a great boxing legend. Next, I have The Future of Truth by Werner Herzog. This goes over half a century where he has challenged, enriched, and expanded our understanding of truth. His films and books have mixed fiction and non-fiction, documentary, drama, reality, and imagination, and he goes beyond the appearance of what's true in search of a higher truth, which he refers to as ecstatic truth. So this is him like kind of trying to write up an answer to one of humanity's deepest and most eternal questions. And this is at the moment when AI videos are proliferating and most people have simply thrown up their hands in despair to what we now know as fake news, and not to mention the lying and propaganda from certain figures. So he's looking for a remedy to this. It's a mix of a memoir, history, politics, poetry, science, and his personal opinion, and he is very original and kind of urges readers to be imaginative in their pursuit of truth, even though the quest is endless. So I'm interested in this. I don't know exactly how this is going to play out in this book here, but I'm curious to see what this man's thoughts are and if I agree with them or I disagree. I personally think it's interesting always to engage in discourse with nonfiction works, so definitely excited to dive into this one, and thank you so much to Penguin Press for sending me a free copy of this. Finally, the last book is another biography. This is Glitz, Glam, and a Damn Good Time, How Mimi Fish, Queen of the Gilded Age, Partied Her Way to Power by Jennifer Wright. She is author of Madame Restell and Get Well Soon. If you know anything about me, you know that I really enjoy the Gilded Age. I love period dramas, and I've been watching the Gilded Age on HBO Max, and I adore that TV show. I am fascinated by this time period. It's definitely one that I want to know more about, and I just want to note that I was very kindly sent this by Grand Central Publishing, so thank you to them for the free copy. I can't wait to dive into this one. I want to know more about Mimi Fish, especially after seeing how she's portrayed in the TV show, and just this period in New York history and American history is something that I'm fascinated by, so I can't wait to dive into this. I don't know exactly what's going to be told in here because I don't know all of Mimi Fish's history, so this will be a good biography to learn more about her her, since she was at the center or the top of this power chain that started in the Gilded Age. So this was like at the turn of the 1900s of the 20th century, as we are getting these very ultra wealthy and rich people for the first time. So this is the era of robber barons and the first billionaires and millionaires in the United States. Alright, so next I wanted to dive into the fantasy and sci-fi books that I've recently bought and received. So first up I have The Tiger's Daughter by Kay Arsenault Rivera. This says Even Gods Can Be Slain, and the publisher for this is Tor. This is one that I found in a little free library near me, and I exchanged another book for this. I had actually never heard of this book before I saw it in the little free library, but just the cover and the synopsis absolutely intrigued me. It says, a poison spreads across an ancient land. The Hakaran Empire has conquered every land within their bold reach, using a combination of imperial might and sabotage to devastate and subjugate the nomadic Koran tribes. Generations later, the decaying imperial line has led to rampant corruption and ruined fields. Worst of all, the demons once kept at bay by the Hakaran Emperor have taken advantage of the crumbling protection of border walls and begun to overrun villages and forests. But against all odds, a pair of warriors rise from the ashes, and they are the last hope of a devastated people and fractured nation. This is a story of Barsalia, Shafali, and Oshizuka who are unafraid to face the demons. They will save their world and become legends, or they will die trying. This was also blurred by V.E. Schwab, so that got me interested. She said that it's rich, expansive, and grounded in human truth, and I am excited to try this out. I think this is like a 2018 release, and I don't know, I'm curious. I don't know exactly how this is going to all play out. It seems like it's Asian inspired, so I'm curious to know more about the author's background as well, to see if they come from an Asian background themselves, or if they were just inspired to write this based off of other things that they've heard about. But excited for this one. I am eager to dive into this whenever I get a chance. Next up I have What Fury Brings by Tricia Levenseller. I was very kindly sent an advanced reader copy of this by Faywell and Friends. So that is an imprint of Macmillan Publishing. And I was actually so surprised to get this. I wasn't really expecting it at all, especially because Tricia Levenseller is such a well-known and beloved author, and I just wasn't anticipating this, but I'm so happy to have this. It says that there's a shortage of men in the kingdom of Amara. After a failed rebellion against the matriarchy, most noblemen in the country are dead, and now the women of Amara must obtain their husbands by kidnapping them from other kingdoms. Olyra, a warrior princess, is vying for the throne and determined to prove her worth by kidnapping a husband. In order to outmaneuver her treacherous cousin, she needs the absolute best, but fortunately the second-born prince of their greatest enemy is known for both his looks and his sweet and docile temperament. He's a perfect choice to secure her claim to the throne. Xanos is the heir to the kingdom of Brutus and has nothing but contempt for the idea of a society run by women. He was trained from birth to fight, lead, and follow in his overbearing father's footsteps, and his path has always been set until he takes his younger brother's place in a drunken prank and finds himself kidnapped and carried off to the Amaran palace and informed he's going to become the husband of the queen potential, Olyra. Xanos needs to escape before anyone learns his true identity, but the more he gets to know his captor, the less he's sure that this is what he really wants. This, I believe, is Tricia Levenseller's adult debut, and it's a romantasy that I'm excited to dive into. We have this warrior general and this woman who's trying to become the queen of her country, and I can't wait to try this out. I'm really hoping that I will like this and I'll enjoy Tricia Levenseller's writing. I've heard good things about her stuff in the past, but also with very hyped romantasy authors, sometimes I've had mixed opinions on them. So I'm very excited for this, but also a little bit cautious as well. Next up, I have Morgan by Mary E. Pearson. This is Namesake of a Kingdom, and it's the prequel to the Remnant trilogy and the Dance of Thieves duology. I have read the first book in the Remnant Chronicles series, so I am interested in trying this out, but I think I should probably reread at least the first book and then continue on with the series in the Remnant Chronicles before diving into this. And I was very kindly sent a copy of this by Squarefish, so thank you so much to them for sending me a copy of this. I believe that this is all under the Macmillan Publishing Group, so I'm excited to dive into this. It says, before borders were drawn, before treaties were signed, and before wars were waged anew, before the great kingdoms of the Remnant were even born, when the world was old, with only a hazy slate of memory told in story and legend, a girl and her family fought to survive. That girl's name was Morrigan. Discover the origin story of the Remnant trilogy and Dance of Thieves duology in the special collector's edition with lavish illustrations, a romance for the ages, and a magic that stirs the hearts. So yeah, this has really beautiful, beautiful cover, and the edges on this, look at that. That's got like a sword there and this beautiful design. Absolutely stunning. I can't wait to dive into this. I'm so excited to have this, and this is going to encourage me to pick up the Remnant Chronicles again sooner than anticipated. Hopefully before the end of 2025 if possible, but I'm also excited for this and I'm glad to have it in my collection. Next I have Immortal Consequences Consequences by Ivy Marie. And I got this from Book of the Month. I believe this was my last month pick, so either June or July. I'm not too sure. But I just love this cover, and the foiling is absolutely stunning. And the edges on this was a little bit pricier than the standard box because it did have like these special edition aspects to it, but I am super impressed by this. This is from Delacorte Press, which I'm gonna have to check what publisher that imprint is under again because I forget, but absolutely stunning. This is so beautiful. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It says, "Some fates are worse than death" on the cover. On the back it says, "6 rivals, 1 victor, eternity is only the beginning. Welcome to Blackwood Academy, the legendary school located on the fringes of the afterlife. Once a pupil enters the academy's arch gates, there's no way out except for a decennial, a once-in-a-decade celebration in which a single worthy student is tested and given a choice. Graduate and join Blackwood's magical elite, or cross over the mysterious other side. This time, though, the rules have been changed. The decennial isn't a celebration, it's a competition, and there can only be one victor. 2 academic arch rivals whose strange connection blurs the lines between obsession and hate. One girl driven solely by ambition and another plagued by memories of the love she lost, and a charming playboy who never cared for anyone until he met the academy's newest student. Each of these 6 students has their own motivation to win and their own secret to hide. But what none of them know is that they aren't the only ones playing Blackwood's game, and if they lose, some fates are worse than death." I'm so excited for this. I have heard some mixed reviews and thoughts on this, but I am willing to give this a go and see what I think of it myself. And I think this could be perfect to dive into in September, hopefully, or at least in the fall season, if not. It's got this like dark academia rivals to lovers sort of energy going, which I'm excited for. And the author of this book is Hispanic. So she was born to a Peruvian mother and a Chilean father in Miami. So that's super cool, getting some Florida representation with the author here. I think this would be perfect to read in September since it is Hispanic or Latinx Heritage Month. So I will try to get to this in September, but if not, it's one that I do want to prioritize in the fall season since this does give me that kind of eerie, grim energy of that dark academia vibes, which I'm excited for. Next, I have 2 graphic novels that were very kindly sent to me by Wattpad Books, so thank you so much to them for sending me these. And this is volumes 1 and 2 of Doombreaker by Blue Deep. I'm so excited to dive into these. So volume 1 says that Zephyr is a lost human fighting evil in a world abandoned by the gods. After he's slain by Tartarus, the demon lord, all of humanity seems lost. However, much to the sinister amusement of the gods, he is reincarnated and sent 10 years into the past to try and save humanity. Can he finally have his revenge against Tartarus and save the woman he loves, or is he doomed to repeat the past? This is collecting episodes 1 through 10 of the webtoon comic. So these graphic novels are often webtoon comics that have been collected together. So it's webtoon unscrolled, and they're now being bound and published by Wattpad Books, which I think is super cool. I can't wait to dive into this. This sounds super exciting. It's got this kind of sci-fi energy going on, and the illustrations look stunning in this. So this is volume 1, and then this is volume 2. I'm not going to read you the synopsis for volume 2 since it would be a spoiler for the first volume, but I am excited to dive into these. Thank you so much to Wattpad Books for sending me these, and they will be featured on my Instagram very soon. Next, I have Coffee Shop in an Alternate Universe by C.B. Lee. This is so stunning. This looks like a cozy fantasy story, which again is perfect for the fall season. I am excited to dive into this. I actually got this from Barnes & Noble, and I got it in a blind date with a book, which is super exciting. This is from Fable and Friends, so that is a Macmillan Publishing imprint. And it says, when Brenda's internet goes out right before an important scholarship deadline, she stumbles into Kat's family's coffee shop. She's swept away by cool, confident Kat, who actually cares about her 19-step plan to save the world through science. Meanwhile, Kat can't stop thinking about Brenda, who is smart, passionate, and doesn't seem to care that Kat is the prophesized chosen one. The only problem is that Kat and Brenda are from very different universes. Like, need to go find a portal to go on a second date, different universes. As their realities collide and things spiral out of control, can a girl determined to save the world find love with a girl determined to outrun her destiny? And this has blurbs from Melinda Lowe, who's the author of Last Night at the Telegraph Club, and Aidan Thomas, author of Cemetery Boys, so that makes me so excited to dive into this. This sounds so cozy and fun. I am excited to read this. It sounds like there's an LGBT romance in this, which is also always exciting to read about. I can't wait. I love the cozy coffee shop vibes and like the kitty here. It sounds so good. I really need to pick this up this fall. And it has these beautiful sprayed edges as well, which I am obsessed with. So can't wait to get to this one. Hopefully it will be one that I will be reading in the next 2 to 3 months. Next up, we have Lover Forbidden by J.R. Ward. This is part of the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, which is a very long ongoing series that J.R. Ward has, I think. And it was very kindly sent to me by Gallery Books, so thank you so much to them for sending me a free copy of this. It says, says on the back, "I'm afraid if I have you, I'll never be free of you." And it's absolutely stunning. It's got beautiful sprayed edges, like look at that. And then it has this sword here, which is stunning. Like just, I'm obsessed with this edition. It's beautiful. I don't know too much about the early books. I did watch some like recaps of the earlier books in the series, so that helped a little bit, but I didn't get the chance to read them before trying to dive into this, so I don't have all the full context. It says, "When Lyric goes out for a night in Caldwell, New York, a brush with death is not on her bingo card. She is totally not ready for the man who risks his own life by shielding her with his big, very enticing body. Her family, especially her sire Quinn, are so relieved that she's okay, but afterward, all she can think about is her mysterious savior. Even though humans and vampires are not supposed to mix, Lyric sinks out Devlin and they're immediately drawn to each other. Her near-death experience gives her a fresh thirst for life, and Devlin finds it impossible to continue his loner ways whenever he looks into her eyes. As passion ignites, both have their own reasons for keeping things short-term, and that's before a betrayal that cuts to their core tears them apart. In the end, as a Black Dagger Brotherhood hunts a traitor and terrible truths are revealed, she has to decide whether the forbidden can ever be forgiven in the name of true love." This sounds so good. Again, I'm not very far into this. I'm towards the beginning still because I just have not had a chance to really dive into this and sink my teeth into it, but hopefully it is one that I will be finishing very soon. I cannot wait to read this all the way through, and I'll let you know my thoughts when I finish it, but so excited for this one. Next up, we have The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. This is a sci-fi book that is from Book of the Month, but I actually picked it up at my local Little Free library. I exchanged another book for this, and as I said before, I'm so impressed with that Little Free library. On the back it says, "My mother used to say I was born reaching, which is true. She also used to say it would get me killed, which it hasn't, not yet anyway." And I believe this was Book of the Month in August of 2020. So the synopsis says that multiverse travel is finally possible, but there's one catch. No one can visit a world where their counterpart is still alive. Enter Kara, whose parallel selves happen to be exceptionally good at dying from disease, turf wars, or vendettas they couldn't outrun. Kara's life has been cut short on 372 worlds in total. On this Earth, however, Kara has survived. Identified as an outlier and therefore a perfect candidate for multiverse travel, she's plucked from the dirt of her wastelands, and now she has a nice apartment on the lower levels of the wealthy and walled-off Wiley City. She works and shamelessly flirts with her enticing yet aloof handler, Dell, as the two women collect off-world data for the Eldridge Institute. She even occasionally leaves the city to visit her family in the Waste, though she struggles to feel at home in either place. So long as she can keep her head down and avoid trouble, she's on a sure path to citizenship and security. But trouble finds her when one of her 8 remaining doppelgangers dies under mysterious circumstances, plunging her into a new world with an old secret, which she discovers will connect her past and future in ways she never could have imagined, and reveal her own role in a plot that endangers not just her world, but the entire multiverse. So it's an outsider who can travel between worlds and discovers a secret that threatens her new home and her fragile place in it. This was the author's sci-fi debut, so I'm excited to dive into this. I don't know how I'll feel about it, but I was curious just from the synopsis. Multiversal and time travel, all of that is something that I'm interested in, but like the multiverse as a concept is something that Marvel really got me intrigued by, so I'm excited to give this a go. Next up, I wanted to share this absolutely stunning PR package that I got from Entangled Publishing. This is for Sadie Kincaid's newest release, and I'm so excited for this. I had to show you the box and everything because this is just absolutely beautiful. Like, as you can tell, it's so stunning. And then I'll open it up for you. Inside it says, "The Why Choose Vampire Romance That's Impossible to Put Down." Like, look at how beautiful this is. And this is the card here. This is Forged in Blood, Broken Bloodline series. And then this is like a note from the author right here. And then it's got this little like blurb card. It says different quotes about this book and people that really, really loved it. And I'm excited for this. And then below all of that is the actual book. So here's the book, Forged in Blood. I am so eager to read this, and look at those edges. This is absolutely stunning. I was not expecting this at all. This is super surprise book mail, and I was so excited when I saw this. I literally screamed when I saw it at my doorstep because it sounds so good. But let me read you the synopsis in case you're interested. It's a Why Choose Vampire romance that's taking over book talk. Growing up as an orphan with nobody in her corner has fueled Ophelia's ambition to become a social worker and help the forgotten child just like her. For a foster kid with only slightly above average grades, it's always felt like a pipe dream. So when an unexpected opportunity to attend Montbridge University arrives, she thinks her life is finally taking a turn for the better. Until she comes to the attention of 3 ruthless, arrogant commanders of the Ruby Dragon Society. They're 3 of the most feared and powerful vampires on campus. But Ophelia doesn't believe in vampires, or witches, or magic, or ancient prophecies. Little does she know that she's about to have her whole world turned upside down because there is something about Ophelia Hart. Something that captures the attention not only of the Ruby Dragon commanders, but also their powerful and enigmatic sire, Professor Alexandros Strakos. Ophelia must learn to trust the very men whom all others fear, and she needs to do it fast, for there are dark forces at work at Montridge University, forces that were long ago forged in blood. I'm so excited for this! It sounds so good. I am a little nervous, like I am with most romanticies, but I'm so excited to give it a try. Hopefully it'll be one that I can get to in the fall season as well, because it sounds so good. I just really want to read this right now, but first I'm trying to finish up my August TBR before diving into new reads in September. Finally, for fantasy and sci-fi, I just wanted to share the An Ember in the Ashes quartet. I ended up getting this box set and I think it's absolutely stunning. I love how it comes together and forms like an illustration. I don't own any other box set of books or series that kind of create an image together, so I'm excited for this. And just all the colors of it is beautiful. Even the box itself is like stunning. I am excited to dive into this. I've heard nothing but absolutely good things about the An Ember in the Ashes series, and I want to read these before reading Air. I don't know that I'm going to get to Air in 2025, but these are ones that I would like to start reading by the end of the year if possible. So I'll read you the synopsis for An Ember in the Ashes, but not for the other books in the series, since that would spoil them for you. So this is what the first book looks like. This is the cover for it, and just I love the gold on it. It looks absolutely beautiful. This is the spine, and it says, Leia is a slave, Elias is a soldier, but neither is free. Under the Martial Empire, defiance is met with death. Leia and her family do not challenge the Empire. They've seen what happens to those who do. But when Leia's brother is arrested for treason, she's forced to make a decision. In exchange for help from the rebels who promise to rescue her brother, she will risk her life to spy for them from within the Empire's greatest military academy. There she meets Elias, the school's finest soldier, and secretly its most unwilling. He and Leia will soon realize that their destinies are intertwined and their choices will change the fate of the Empire itself. I have heard great things about it. So many people gush about this series, and I really enjoyed another book written by Sabaa Tahir earlier this year that I read, and it was very deeply moving. It's her contemporary novel, so that one was really good in my opinion. I loved her writing style and it resonated with me, so I think that this is something that I could really enjoy. I did try reading the audiobook for An Ember in the Ashes a few years ago, but I just couldn't get into it. I think this is a series that I would probably need to physically read with my eyeballs rather than listen to in order to fully understand it and appreciate it. And now I'll just briefly show you the covers for the other books in the series. Again, not reading the synopses for these, but this is A Torch Against the Night, the second book in the series. And look at that, so stunning. I love this. Then we have A Reaper at the Gates, the green. I love it with the gold. Oh, so beautiful. And then the final book in the quartet is A Sky Beyond the Storm. I am super partial to this one because I love purple and blue, so I really love this. I can't wait to dive into these. These editions of the book really make me want to pick them up even sooner, so hopefully ones that I can start reading very soon. All right, next I'm going to dive into some general fiction and literary fiction books. I may have a few women's fiction also thrown in here as well, but I thought that this made sense to group it all together. First, I have The Horse by Willie Vlaughton. This is a very small book, and it was very kindly sent to me by Harper Perennial. It follows Al Ward, who is a grizzled man in his 60s. He lives in an isolated mining claim in the high desert of central Nevada, and he survives on canned soup, instant coffee, and memories of his ex-wife, friends, and the family he's lost. He has a life as a touring musician, and he's hampered by bouts of insomnia, anxiety, and chronic lethargy. Al finds himself teetering on the edge of madness and running out of reasons to continue going on until a horse arrives on his doorstep, nameless, blind, and utterly helpless. Is the animal real or a phantom from his imagination? He contemplates the horse's existence and what, if anything, he can do. His thoughts are interspersed with snapshots of his life as a musician. He joins various bands, plays casinos, truck stops, clubs, and bars, and falls in love and finds pockets of companionship and minor success along the way. He's never close to stardom or financial success. He continues as a journeyman for decades until alcoholism and a heartbreaking tragedy lead him to the isolation of the barren Nevada desert. It's a meditation on addiction, regret, loneliness, and second chances, centered on a core of unexpected hope and love. I'm excited to read this. I don't read a lot of books written by men or featuring male main characters unless it's opposite a female main character in a romance. So I'm interested in seeing how this plays out. I think this is an important conversation to be had about male mental health and how men can find themselves really lonely in life and lost as well. I don't think this is something that is exclusive to women, but men are taught to just bury it down and not talk about it. So I'm glad to see that this author has written this, and I am excited to explore these themes and topics in this book. Next is Anyone's Ghost by August Thompson. This says it's a new novel that is a heart squeezer and extraordinary debut in which transforming love and friendship between two young men during one unforgettable teenage summer haunts them into adulthood. It took 3 car crashes to kill Jake. Theron, David, David Alden is there for the first Jew. The summer they met in rural New Hampshire when he's 15 and anxious, and Jake's 17 and a natural. Then 6 years later in New York City, those 2 short, ecstatic, painful nights that changed both their lives forever, the end of the dream and longing for the dream and the dream itself all at once. Theron is not there for the third crash, and yet their story contains a lot of joy and self-discovery, the glorious stupid simplicity of a boyhood joke, and the devastation of insecurity, the way a great song can distill a universe and the limits of what we can know about each other, mysterious, porous, ungraspable fault line between yourself and the person you love better than yourself. It sounds interesting. I'm curious to see how this is going to all play out, and I know that he's going to die in this third car crash, but I want to know more about the relationship between Theron and Jake in this book, so I'm eager to try this out. Thank you so much to Penguin Press from Penguin Random House for sending me a copy of this. I can't wait to try it out. Next, we have a book that I bought for myself. This is And Every Morning the Way Home Gets Longer and Longer by Fredrik Backman. This is actually a novella, and this was the first work of his that I actually ever read. This is one of my favorite books of all time. Fredrik Backman is one of my top authors, and I need to read more of his backlist, but I really wanted to have a copy of this for my shelves because this is one that I think I'll find myself reading over and over again, and it's a deeply powerful and meaningful story. It's about this grandfather who has dementia and kind of how his grandson and his son are coping with this as his disease progresses. This is one that holds a special place in my heart because I deeply resonated with and connected with the story on a deeper level, and it's one that helped me when I was in a hard place dealing with a family member that had dementia, so it's very personal to me, and I just didn't have a copy of it. I read the ebook when I first read it, and I wanted to have a physical copy of it because it's one that I think I will reread over and over again, and it's one of my favorite books ever. Next, I have A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, and this follows 4 college classmates who are broke, adrift, and buoyed only by their friendship and ambition as they move to New York in search of fame and fortune. While their relationships are tinged by addiction, success, and pride, they deepen over the decades, and the men are held together by their devotion to the brilliant, enigmatic Jude, a man scarred by an unspeakable childhood trauma. A hymn to brotherly bonds and a masterful depiction of love in the 21st century, this novel is about the families we are born into and those that we make for ourselves. I know that this has a lot of childhood trauma featured in it, and I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that aspect of it, if it's glorified or not. I don't really know if I'm going to like that aspect, but I do like that it's about found family and how they kind of all come together even though they went through these horrible circumstances when they were younger. So I'll give it a try, and if anything, I can always DNF it and just put it down. I picked this one up from my local Little Free library. I exchanged another book in exchange for this one, so I want to try it. If it's not for me, it's not for me. I also have the audiobook from Libro.fm, so I can listen to it there if I want to, or switch back and forth between the physical copy and the audiobook. But I've heard really good things about it. That's why I was intrigued by it, and it made me motivated to want to pick it up when I saw it there. It might not be one that ends up staying in my collection or one that I end up fully reading. We'll see what ends up happening with this one, but I wanted to give it a try at least. Next, I have These Summer Storms by Sarah MacLean. I have read a few Sarah MacLean books in the past. I've read her Bare Knuckle Bastards series, so there's 3 books in that, and traditionally Sarah MacLean has been a historical romance author, so that series is historical romance, and I believe the rest of her backlist is historical romance, but this is a contemporary novel, and I'm excited to give this a try. It seems like very dramatic, giving like Gossip Girl energy, so that made me excited for it. It's following a New England family in a long overdue reckoning. They are very wealthy, and one weekend threatens to tear them apart. Alice Storm hasn't been welcome at her family's magnificent private island off Rhode Island coast in 5 years, not since she was cast out and built her life beyond the Storm name, influence, and untold billions. But the shocking death of their larger-than-life father changes everything. She plans to keep her head down, pay her final respects, and leave the minute the funeral is over. Unfortunately, her father had other plans. The eccentric, manipulative patriarch left his family a final challenge, an inheritance game designed to upend their world. The rules are clear. Spend 1 week on the island, complete their assigned tasks, and receive the inheritance. But a whole week on Storm Island is no easy task for Alice. Every corner of the sprawling old house is bursting with chaos. Her older sister's secret lover, her brother's unyielding arrogance, her younger sister's constant analysis of the vibes, her mother's cool judgment. They're all under the stern and watchful gaze of Jack Dean, her father's intriguing and too handsome second-in-command. It'll be a miracle if Alice manages to escape unscathed. It's a story about grief, love, and family, and explores past secrets, present truths, and futures forged in the wake of wild summer storms. I have heard mixed things about this, but since I have liked other Sarah MacLean books in the past, I'm still going to try this out. I did get this from Book of the Month, and I am hoping to read this maybe next summer since the summer season has kind of drawn to a close. It's still super hot outside, but we are now in September, so I'm not feeling like this is a September read. This definitely gives June or July vibes to me, maybe even August, so I'll probably save this until then and give it a try then. Next up, I have Come and Get It by Kylie Reed. This was another blind date with the book. This was the second one that I got that day from Barnes & Noble, and it takes place at the University of Arkansas in 2017. Millie Cousins is a super senior resident assistant at Belgrade Dormitory who just wants to graduate, get a job, and buy a house. So when Agatha Paul, a writer and visiting professor itching for her next big topic, offers Millie an easy yet unusual opportunity for them to help each other further their own interests, Millie naturally jumps at the chance. But Millie's starry-eyed hustles quickly becomes jeopardized by a lonely transfer student, unruly resident, and illicit intrigue. Millie and Agatha are forced to question how much of themselves they're willing to trade to get what they want. It's sharp and intimate, thought-provoking, and a singular novel, so I'm excited to try this. It was a Good Morning America book club pick, so that's always interesting to note. And it's been touted as the best book of the year by Vogue, Elle, Vulture, NPR, Harper's Bazaar, a bunch of magazines and news publications. So I'm curious to try this, but I'm a little bit skeptical or nervous about it because books that receive such high praise sometimes have such a long way to go down and disappoint me in that sense. Hopefully this one won't though, and let's see how it goes. I'll give it a try, and if not, I'll end up unhauling it, but it sounds interesting. I really like the stuff that was mentioned on the outside of the blind date with a book when I picked this up, so let's give it a try and see what I think of it. Next, I have The Irish Goodbye by Heather Amy O'Neill. This was very kindly sent to me by Henry Holt Books, and it says in this debut, it's for fans of Jake Courtney Sullivan and Mary Beth Keane. Three adult sisters grapple with a shared tragedy over a Thanksgiving weekend as they try to heal from strained family bonds through the passage of time. It's been years since the three Ryan sisters were all together at their beloved family home on their eastern shore of Long Island. 2 decades ago, their lives were upended by an accident on their brother Topher's boat. A friend's brother was killed, and the resulting lawsuit nearly bankrupted their parents, and Topher spiraled into depression, eventually taking his life. Now the Ryan women are back for Thanksgiving, eager to reconnect, but each carries a heavy secret. The eldest, Kate, still holds guilt for the role no one knows she played in the boat accident, rekindles a flame with her high school crush, Topher's best friend, and the brother of the boy who died. Middle sister Alice has been thrown a curveball that threatens the career she's restarting and faces a difficult decision that may doom her marriage. And youngest Maggie is finally taking the risk of bringing the woman she loves home to meet her devoutly Catholic mother. Infusing everything is the grief for Topher that none of the Ryans have figured out how to carry together. When Kate invites a guest from their shared past Thanksgiving dinner, old tensions boil over and new truths surface, nearly overpowering the flickering light of their family bond. Far more than a family holiday will be ruined unless the sisters can find a way to forgive themselves and one another. This sounds really interesting. I think that grief, loss, and suicide, all of those topics can have a really big effect on the family, and I am curious to see how it's going to be handled here, especially when grief and loss are not properly dealt with and suicide is not something that the family talks about or tries to get therapy for. It often leads to a lot of issues later down the line, which is going to be evident in this book, and I can't wait to try this out. I don't know exactly when this is coming out, but I know that this is coming out some point soon, or maybe it's already out. I'll have to check, but I'm excited to give this a go and see what I'll think of it. Next, I have The Dance in the Fire by Daniel Saldana Paris. This is translated from Spanish by Christina McSweeney, and I'm curious, this is like literary fiction. It is a little bit like weird, like unique fiction, I think, and it's from Catapult Press, so thank you so much to Catapult for sending me a copy of this. It says it's a gripping, atmospheric new novel by acclaimed Mexican writer. Three friends bound by erotic flames of the past reunite in a city engulfed by wildfires and a dancing plague. When Ere returns to Cuernavaca after a divorce and a failed career in Mexico City, he once again completes the intense love triangle that had left an indelible mark on their adolescence of three high school friends. The city, surrounded by a ring of claustrophobic wildfires, brings out the past and confronts them with their present. They must once again face the entanglement of friendship and desire, the seemingly distant discovery of sexuality, complex parental relationships, and the daunting task of artistic fulfillment. In the background, there are two forces of chaos and destruction that are a constant presence. As fires are ravaging the physical landscape, one of the friends begins choreographing an ecstatic dance inspired by the German expressionist and medieval dance macabre. What starts as a coping mechanism for the anxieties of youth and climate catastrophe becomes an overpowering, all-consuming hysteria. Mysterious powers are awakened, the boundary between reality and myth begins to blur, and the friends find themselves immersed in an increasingly turbulent and uncertain universe. This sounds like it's a little bit of magical realism going on in here, and I'm curious to see how this like Germanic inspired dance is going to affect things. I don't know what these powers are. I don't know how it's going to affect the friendships or what's happening in their lives, but curious to read this. It is a little bit outside of my comfort zone in the sense that it's a little bit stranger than the usual books that I'd pick up, but I'm excited to give it a go because I've been meaning to read some more things that are a little outside of the box. Next, I have Days at the Tarunka Cafe by Satoshi Yagisawa. I was very kindly sent a copy copy of this by Harper Perennial. So thank you so much to them for sending me this free copy. I can't wait to read this. It says, tucked away on a narrow side street in Tokyo is the Tarunka Cafe, a neighborhood nook where the passersby are just as likely to be local cats as tourists. Its regulars include Shinatsu Yukimura, a mysterious young woman who always leaves behind a napkin folded in the shape of a ballerina, Hiroyuki Numata, a middle-aged man who returned to the neighborhood searching for the happy life he once gave up, and Shizuku Tachibana, the cafe owner's teenage daughter who's still coming to terms with her sister's death as she falls in love for the first time. While Tarunka Cafe serves up a perfect cup of coffee, it also provides these sundry souls with nourishment far more lasting. It illuminates the period of our lives when we feel lost and how we find our way again. I am so excited to read this. I want to get some more Japanese literature and K-dramas and all of that, and this sounds really beautiful. I'm curious to see how the setting of the cafe kind of affects the lives of these individuals and how they interact in this place. I love books that have a setting or a place that brings the characters together. That's so fun, and I just can't get over like the cover. I can't get over the concept. It's something that I'm really intrigued by, and I think it'll be a little bit of a slower, unexpected read, but I think it'll be more about like everyday miracles and everyday choices that we make, which will be really fun to read about. It'll be a change of pace from all these very dramatic and over-the-top books. Next is A Good Hard Look by Anne Napolitano. This is also sent to me by Penguin Press, so thank you so much to them for sending me a free copy of this. It says, forced by illness to leave behind a successful life in New York, literary icon Flannery O'Connor returned to her family farm in the small town of Milledgeville, Georgia. With her health and time both limited, all she wants is to be left alone to write. But her plans are soon upended by Melvin Whiteson, a banker from Manhattan who recently returned and married the town belle. Melvin is at loose ends with his new life, though he has every opportunity and he's not sure where to begin. Flannery knows exactly what she wants, but is running out of time. Through their unusual and clandestine friendship, both will come to reflect on the decisions they've made and the paths they've chosen. Literary history and fiction gracefully intersect in the emotionally charged novel of this small town southern life. I'm curious to see how this is going to go. I'm really interested in the premise. I like books that are based on friendship, and these two people seem like they're very much opposites, but they have traits and skills that they could learn from each other, or things that they could really learn and improve on in their lives. I think it'll be a very rich and fulfilling friendship, and it seems like it's gonna have a lot of southern charm and tradition in this. It seems like the characters are really rich with this, and I am excited to try it. I just received this one today, and it says on the front that it's a wholly believable world shaped by duty, small pleasures, and fateful choices. And it says that this was blurbed by the Oprah magazine, actually, so that's super cool. I can't wait to try it and see what I think of it. So thank you once again to Penguin Press for sending me this. Okay, so finally, I just wanted to share some new contemporary books and contemporary romances that I recently bought myself or received. So first is Somewhere Along the Line by Mallory Thomas. I was very kindly sent this by the author, and by now you'll probably have already seen that I featured it on my page. I had a short dedicated to this, and it's also been featured on my Instagram. But it says that Piper Paulson's life is finally on the upswing. She has a new job, a BFF roommate, and a commitment to avoid dating after an ex cost her her peace and her former career. She may not have 2 nickels to spare, but that's another day's problem. James Newhouse doesn't have time or energy to deal with anything. He's a hotshot banker with a complicated family, and he's determined to keep people at arm's length. His attraction to Piper isn't part of the plan, and neither is adding her to a family affairs commuter pass as his wife to save her money on train fare. Too bad his judgment is speeding away faster than their shared train. They're thrown together by chance and a handful of Elvis impersonators, and James and Piper find themselves witnesses to an incident on their commute. As they are married witnesses, they might be asked to testify if the crime goes to trial. Can they keep up the charade to avoid being outed for the lie? And perhaps more importantly, can they protect their hearts in the process? It's a marriage of convenience story about these 2 strangers that have to act convincingly in love after their pressure is put on. I am very excited to have this in my collection. I was so thankful to work with the author on this one, and just wanted to share it with you guys once again. If you haven't seen my short to hear more of my thoughts on it, you definitely can. And yeah, I just wanted to hold it for you guys here as well. Next up is Mess by Michael Chesler. This is about a woman named Jane Brown. Into the world, she is an LA-based professional organizer, a model of composure and reticence. But inside, she is as critical of herself as she is of others. She loves orderliness and tidiness and struggles to accept accept the exasperating messiness of her clients, actresses and influencers and other rich and famous Angelinos, and much closer to home, that of her live-in boyfriend, who can be as aggravating as he is comforting. Her clients share or inadvertently share stories of heartbreak, grief, devotion, and love, and Jane realizes she has to lower her defenses and open her heart to declutter the mess of her own mindset. Organizing her feelings turns out to be the most daunting job she's ever tackled, but one that promises big rewards if she succeeds. Freedom, happiness, and even love. It's set against the rich, beautiful, and shallow world of Hollywood money and mansions. So I think this is going to be about her learning to love herself and find acceptance amidst the messiness of life. She likes to organize things, but life is not always organized. Things can get messy, things can get complicated. So I think it'll be important for Jane to go on this journey and discover that for herself. I'm excited to read this. I was very kindly sent a copy of this by Harper Perennial, and hopefully it'll be one that I can get to soon. I don't know when I'll be reading this, but I'm really excited. It says that it's Marie Kondo meets The Real Housewives, which, yes, that sold me immediately. I definitely can't wait to give it a go. Next is Playmaker by Deanna Faison. I recently hauled Game Changer by Deanna Faison in my historical fiction reading vlog, so if you want to see that, you can see that there. But this says, what started as a game just got serious. Cameron's a hot NFL prospect, and he's a total player on and off the field, but his moves don't seem to work on Maddie. While she once crushed on him hard, those feelings have since faded, and she's focused on her own future, getting into medical school. Then spring break turns their plans and feelings upside down. Soon, Cam and Maddie are hooking up in secret, and she doesn't want her parents or her brother, who is Cam's best friend, finding out. But as the vacation comes to an end and they both have to head back to college, the pair must decide if they're just hooking up or if there's something real there. And one thing's for certain, their choices will change their lives and playbooks for good. I'm really interested in trying this out. It's a hidden attractions novel, and I want to read more sports romances. I've only read one or two, but I loved Unloved by Peyton Corinne so much, and that made me more open to reading more sports romances and the subgenre as a whole. This is from W by Wattpad Books, and I bought this for myself, but I was sent the second book in the series, Game Changer, but just wanted to know that this one I did by myself. Finally, I want to share the Kiss Bet Volumes 1 and 2. I was sent the second volume by Webtoon from Wattpad, and I bought the first volume myself, so I'm excited to read it. I'm not going to read you the synopsis from the second one, but the first one says, Dare to smooch a stranger. It's senior year and Sarah Lynn just turned 18. She's got great friends, a cool dad, or so he thinks, and a whole lot ahead of her. The last thing she needs to worry about is having her first kiss. But that's all about to change because good pal Patrick just challenged her to a bet that will lead to either love, heartbreak, or embarrassment, or maybe all three. So I'm excited to dive into this one. I fly through graphic novels, and this looks so cute. This is the first volume, and then this is the cover for the second volume, and this just gives me a little bit of like fall vibes. I don't know if it's just the color of her hair and the scarf and everything, but it seems like it could be perfect reads for the fall time, so maybe ones that I'll be picking up this season. All right, so those are all the books that I have to haul today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, give it a like, comment, and subscribe. Have you read any of these books, or have you recently purchased any new books or hauled any books from the library? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Wherever you are in the world, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, I hope that you're doing well, and I'll see you for another one soon. Bye!